We have a very special piece. This will be the world premiere of Into Eternity by Lori Laitman, who is a living Jewish American composer. She's fabulous, and we first got in touch with Lori when we performed her Holocaust-themed oratorio last year, Vedem. And that is, of course, where Lori met Frank Grunwald and learned about Frank's mother's letter, which she immediately wanted to set to music. And so now I'm very pleased and honored to invite Frank Grunwald up to speak just a little bit about his mother and her final words.
So it's been almost 79 years since my mother wrote the letter. It's a short note. It's really not a letter. It's a note, maybe 200, 250 words. And a little bit of a historical detail on how the letter came about for the ones that are not acquainted with the history of the letter. We were in Auschwitz starting in December of 1943, we meaning my family. And the transports from Theresienstadt, which was the ghetto, which was the transition ghetto, mostly to Auschwitz, contained mostly people from Czechoslovakia. We were transported, about 5,000 of us, in a train to Auschwitz in December of 1944. Ahead of us, about 4 months ahead of us, was another transport from Theresienstadt that arrived in September. So now there were roughly 10,000 Czech people, Czech families in Auschwitz. And we found out that each transport was good or to be kept alive for only 6 months. So the September transport was gassed in March of 1944. Most people, about 90% of the people, were killed. And our transport, which was the December transport, had to go through a selection in July of 1944. In that selection, my brother, who was walking with a slight limp, was put on death row. Basically, my mother knew that he was going to be gassed. So she decided to stay with John, who was 16 years old, and I was 12 at that time. And when I said goodbye to my mother on the 6th of July of 1944, I had absolutely no idea that she was going to be killed, that she volunteered to stay with my brother John. So after we were separated and I was moved, I walked to another location in Auschwitz. My mother stayed with my brother, and at that point my father was already saved. He was a physician, and he was transferred to the medical camp in Auschwitz. So my mother basically stayed with my brother, and on the 11th of July, roughly 5 days later, whoever remained in that camp was gassed. And she knew basically what their destiny was. And she wrote this note to my dad and gave it to a guard, who the next day gave it to my father, who was then in the medical camp. So it is a very interesting letter. As I said, it's 79 years ago, almost. This July, it's going to be 79 years. There are several elements in the letter that I think make it especially significant. One of them is the tone of the letter. There is absolutely nothing suggesting in that letter that it is written by a victim. The concept of victim was never part of my mother's vocabulary or psychology. Once you assume the role of a victim, you put yourself into a submissive position, and that implies that you are physically and emotionally under the control of the oppressor. So she was never a victim, and she never acted as a victim. I think the second element in the letter that's so interesting is her totally unselfish attitude. The letter is not about her. The only time that she uses the word I, or the letter I, is only used once where she writes, I am completely calm. The rest of the letter is all about my brother John, and about whom she writes that his composure and reaction to the situation is marvelous, and also about my father and me, where she's wishing us a good and healthy future and a healthy life. The third important element in the letter is that it totally lacks any type of anger or hatred towards the oppressors. Everything in the letter is positive and without any fear, anger, or complaints. I think that this is probably why the letter has had such a great emotional impact on so many people. It communicates a positive, unselfish, and loving attitude of a prisoner that is just minutes before their death. My mother ends the letter by saying, "Into eternity, yours, Vilma." It is my hope that her letter lasts into eternity and continues to be an example of human strength, love, and courage. Thank you.
Could